Men, equipment, weapons vanish without a trace. Missing aircraft pilots and crews are of special concern to the military when no explanations fit the usual reasons outside of combat. All has to do with what I'm showing you here now. This is not made up. This is real. By now, I thought that we in the public would know the truth, that we're not alone in this universe and there is an alien presence that interacts with Earth life everywhere in both hemispheres. Certainly, the eerie animal mutilations have continued worldwide to this very month. Even controlled remote viewers that were working in the late 1980s at Fort Meade, Maryland for the Defense Intelligence Agency reported that the cosmos is teeming with life, exactly what Corey Goode and David Wilcock are reporting from their interactions. And that both friendly and unfriendly intelligences are out there. And since Homo sapiens sapien, this current model of standing up primates emerged alongside Neanderthalensis some 40,000 years ago, the question in my mind was back then and is now, why would anything in this universe be hostile to humans or to any Earth life? Was the hostility in the animal mutilations, or were all those strange bloodless excisions of tissue an ongoing harvest of genetic material because the perpetrators are using something from Earth life specifically to survive and work on this planet? In 1979 to 1980, I remember my confusion and fear about whatever could use a beam of light to lift up 1,700-pound cows from pastures seen by ranchers and law enforcement, then bloodlessly cut away an ear, eye, tongue, jaw, flesh, genitals, and rectum. This anonymous postcard, dated June 19th, 1989, reached the post office box that I had then in Littleton, Colorado, after I wrote my first book, and that was An Alien Harvest, about the UFOs and animal mutilations, released in June of 1989. And soon after, this postcard said, quote, "Dear Linda, congratulations on An Alien Harvest, an outstanding truth, an exemplary, inestimable document. You have one half of the equation. The other one half is truly the nightmare beyond telling. A few know, but still remain silent," close quote. This photo on the front of the postcard is a scene from The Day the Earth Stood Still, released in 1951 by 20th Century Fox Film Corporation. In the UFO craft's doorway, with his hand raised, is an extraterrestrial humanoid that they called Klaatu. In front is the powerful robot Gort. They have come to Earth to deliver a warning that humans will not be allowed to spread their nuclear violence into space. That was 9 years after my Emmy Award-winning TV documentary production, A Strange Harvest, had first broadcast about the bloodless, trackless animal mutilations throughout Colorado, the United States, Canada, and around the world since at least the 1960s. I produced the documentary, A Strange Harvest, when I was director of special projects for KMGH TV Channel 7, that was then CBS in Denver. I had worked 18-hour days for 9 straight months trying to understand who or what was killing and mutilating so many different animals, both domestic and wild, and why. The anonymous 1989 postcard implied a shocking and disturbing revelation about the agenda behind the UFO and ET phenomena. A Strange Harvest was first broadcast on the evening of May 25th, 1980, to the largest audience in the Denver station's history. And during my documentary production, a retired Logan County sheriff and several law enforcement who frequently saw these big mama UFO type lights emitting what the local ranchers said looked like baby UFOs that would come out of these big lights that would stay in the air for hours with these strange, in time lapse, they would see these motions around the light. And that was when ranchers and law enforcement, I'm looking at these photos, and they said, we know that the perpetrators are creatures from outer space. I also heard firsthand descriptions from ranchers who had seen round, glowing aerial objects emit beams of light down into pastures. Some had even seen a cow rise in a beam of light or be lowered in a beam of light to the ground, dead and mutilated. None of them would go on the record for fear of sarcastic ridicule by other humans. There are the pathology evidence that the bloodless excisions of an ear, eye, skin around the jaw, the eye, jaw flesh, tongue, genital, and rectal tissue were cut out as a heat-induced injury. Whether this lesion was caused by a laser, it does not appear, it does appear consistent with a heat-induced injury, and they're saying it's not possible to tell if it is a laser. And let me tell you, from having worked with Dr. John Altshuler in Denver for several years, and remembering the day that he called me to come to his office, he said, I want you to see the tissue. I was going out in pastures, cutting away tissue, putting it in formalin, having it FedEx back to him. He'd have the slides prepared. And he had gotten from a gynecologist known laser surgery in a female human, so that we could compare what mammalian known laser tissue under known conditions looked like compared to the tissue that I was getting from the animals out in the wild. And he said, look through, he had a stereoscopic microscope, so you could look in one eye and the other eye and be two different comparisons. The one on the right is the gynecology, the one on the left is one of the mutilated animals. Linda, can you tell me what you see that's different? And it was very clear that I was looking at black pepper grains in the right, which was the gynecology surgery. In the left, I wasn't seeing this black pepper look. And when I said that to him, he said, that's exactly right. We're a carbon-based life form. You cannot take any form of laser to a carbon-based life form without showing carbon grains that are there from the heat under a microscope. None of the tissues that I personally cut and sent back to his office ever had any carbon residue, leaving the question, what is the cut? What is the technology? Is it a sound? We have not had, I talked with a military guy about a technology they started using about 10 years ago. It's sound. It's sound frequency. He called me up. He said, I'm going to do tests and send you the slides so that you can have them. This was his offer, just out of the blue, so that you can see what these excisions look like. I never heard from him again. The phone number he gave me was disconnected. I've never understood what happened unless he was working in some sort of a classified program, wanted me to know, thought that we were still Americans and he could talk to me on the phone and that he was going to work with me. I have no idea what happened, but I'm telling you, I think it would have been the kind of information that I need to be able to show people, but it was denied in some way. That happens a lot in my path. We are at what I think is one of the more interesting, because this goes back to 1975, this serrated edge, which has been proved over and over, the same kind of pathology, exposed to high heat. This was 1975, Great Falls, Montana, the bottom steer, Portland, Oregon, 1990. And the reason I'm going through some of these details is that people either forget or no one does an update reality check in a world like this one now, where you're hearing that we may open up the fact that there is an alien presence on this planet through Antarctica. What about what is happening in the rest of the world? And that is why I'm starting with this difficult material, but we're headed toward even much more difficult material. This is Great Falls, Montana, 1975. This is Steer, Portland, Oregon, 1990. Both were serrated. This is a slightly different type, but they were both serrated, and both of these had been analyzed and found to have been exposed to high heat. Now, in my 1983 documentary, A Strange Harvest, I featured a human abduction case in which a mother named Judy Doherty and her teenage daughter Cindy have both been taken aboard a craft in May 1973, and inside the craft was a pasty-skinned, that's their word, being with large snake eyes that was excising tissue from a calf that both Judy and her daughter Cindy had seen from a car rising in a beam of light in this pasture outside of Houston, Texas. And the family, there were 5 people in the car, and they were coming back from a bingo game that night in Houston. And when they saw the light and they saw the beam, we are into the world that you hear in R.A.F. Bentwaters and everywhere. Something has the ability to literally put a family on hold. They go into a suspended reality. No one in the car was seeing what was happening to Judy and Cindy. Judy and Cindy are not able to communicate with the people in the car, and yet they go through a process where they go up in the beam of light. They watch the excision on the calf as if the beings wanted them to see this and to communicate. So I contacted Dr. Leo Sprinkle, then head of counseling and testing at the University of Wyoming, and my cameraman from the station, Dr. Sprinkle, and I met Judy Doherty at a city in the Southwest to do the one and only in-depth hypnosis session. And I'm only going to share with you a tiny part as she begins, quote, in answer to his question, why are the aliens doing this, the mutilations? Quote, for some reason, the aliens projected that it was necessary that this be done. You know, that it was for our betterment, for the betterment of mankind that this was done, that they were more or less watching out for us. And Dr. Sprinkle, not only of precision, but also a benevolent or kind attitude toward people. Judy, I can't say they were kind. Dr. Sprinkle, concerned? Judy, I can't even say that they were concerned. They were just like doing a job that evidently it affects them too. The only emotion they had that I could find was that they put themselves above me, and they would like mimic or make me feel like they were making fun of me when I would ask a question. Dr. Sprinkle, like they were telling jokes among themselves as they talked to you? Doherty, yes, that's it. And I wasn't supposed to be there, but they just allowed me to be there, like they were busy doing whatever they were doing and just didn't want to bother to take the time to make me go away, close quote. Or later discussions with Leo Sprinkle is the whole issue of some things are flaunted in our faces. There is absolutely no reason why a non-human technology that has the ability to lift up 1,700 to 2,000 pound animals from a pasture ever has to return them to the same place. This is done. This is flaunting. I've talked with many sheriffs. They get the feeling. The technology, the intelligence, they flaunt in our faces what they're able to do. Now, while Judy Doherty's May 1973 encounter with her teenage daughter near this pasture outside of Houston, Texas, involved the snake-eyed beings and the mutilation of a calf on board the craft right in front of Judy and Cindy, there was another abduction experience 7 years later in the first week of May 1980 near a Cimarron, New Mexico pasture. And on this map, here is Cimarron up here. Everybody's familiar with Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Here's Roswell. Here's the southern part of the state. This is White Sands. Here's the Trinity site right up here. So we're in the northern part of New Mexico. And here is another New Mexico map that I did just so I could show you. Every one of those red circles are areas where there have been multiple animal mutilations since the 1960s in New Mexico. I do not think that people understand. In the area of Argentina and Bolivia since 2002, SENASA, the Department of Agriculture that has an office in Buenos Aires, they officially released in a story in about 5-7 years ago, I have the original story, saying that at least 3,300 animal mutilations have been reported to SENASA. And in that report, they said that the veterinarians that were examining the excisions in Bolivia and in Argentina were finding the excisions were cut with high heat. So this is ongoing around us today. It's just not maybe in California in your face. Now, the hypnosis sessions with Judy Doherty and Dr. Sprinkle, we started this on May 11th, 1980. He was director of counseling and testing at the University of Wyoming then, and he had received a phone call from a scientist that some of you may have heard about working at the Thunderbolt lab right at the gate of Kirtland Air Force Base, Paul Benowitz. The 28-year-old mother and her 6-year-old son were in Cimarron, New Mexico, the first week of May 1980, and under hypnosis, Dr. Sprinkle, this is an excerpt where she is talking. There never was an audio tape available. He made all notes. So I'm just going to pretend to be all voices. My son's right there in my ear talking to me, and I'm half tuning him out. The light is so bright. I feel like it's coming in on me. I stop the car and we get out. This isn't real. It can't be happening. What is it? There is another one. The bright light is confusing. I want to leave, but I want to see what it is. My son wants to leave. They're right by the side of the road. She's pulled over, and they're watching two men that look like they have blonde hair down mutilating an animal. So much commotion. Now they're landing. Oh God, cattle are screaming, but I've got to know who it is. My son wants to go. The light is so bright. It's orange. You'll hear people do this. They see orange light and they see white light when they're in the presence of craft that are involved with mutilations. If you are involved with raising water out of a lake, which has been reported by the CIA and others in Russia and Soviet Union, and the light will be green or it will be blue. So something about the color of the light seems to be related to the mass that is being lifted up. The light is so bright, it's orange. I want to see them. I want to go to them. I'm out of the car screaming of the cattle. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's in pain, incredible pain. She had told Leo before the hypnosis started that she and her son were screaming at the people in the pasture because the cow was screaming to stop, which apparently is what brought attention to them. God, the brightest, whitest light I've ever seen. How can it fly like that? What is it? It's incredible. This is real. Oh, I'm scared. How can they be doing that? Killing that cow. It's not even dead. It's alive. And Dr. Sprinkle, you see the cow? Yes, it's not even dead, but they're pulling it apart. This is such an interesting detail, not to offend anyone, but I think it's time that people understood. There is in every abduction that I've ever interviewed anybody who was in a craft watching excisions or they were seeing it on the pasture. Every single person says the same thing. It is vital that the animal be alive while they take the blood out of the animal for another use. They're taking us with the cow. They're getting the cow into the ship. And my son, but I'm going in one ship, and they're taking him toward the other. The mother and son are transported into one of 5 aerial craft, and they are separated, which enrages the mother, who demands to have her 6-year-old son returned to her. Different grotesque beings handle her, some roughly, until tall, hairless humanoids in white robes show up. When they take me to the ship, I can't feel my feet touching the ground at all. They are not gentle, Dr. Sprinkle. Well, how do they look? How are they dressed? The mother, the cloth is rough, dark brown, boots like stormtrooper boots. They have an insignia on the left. Sprinkle, how does it look? Mother, dark orangish design. I think it's a dark blue background. I don't think we have a color like that. 3 lines and a line across the bottom, close quote. And I'm going to show you a sketch that was made for me by a man who worked in an intel agency. This sketch is what the Cimarron mother described, but you would not understand it from what she said to Leo that he wrote down. 3 lines and a line across the bottom. These details were shown to me that it's 3 lines that cross each other equidistant, and that there is a blue circle on the left and a red circle on the right, and that this is called the trilateral insignia and is allegedly used by the specific Ebans, the ones that have the pear-shaped heads and the kind of gray sidewalk colored skin. And the acronym EBAN simply means extraterrestrial biological entities. To show you further how complex even that relationship is, I have a card that was sent to me like an innocent Christmas card back around 1983-84 time period when I was working on the home box office project. And the card was written by a source, and it said, "The Ebans we think are our allies, comma, but they lie." Now, one man said to me, well, parents lie to their children all the time. But it doesn't mean that they lie to hurt their children. The Ebans, the ones with the pear-shaped, not the point. The Ebans have heads shaped like this, like pears. They do not wear the black slanted lenses. If they are our allies, one man said, without the Ebans, we might not be here. But they lie. This is complex. She continues, their eyes fill more than 1/2 of their face, like empty holes. I can't remember any bottom part of their face. There are only 4 of them, and I remember them feeling apathy toward the questions I was asking. There's something horrible, something I'm blocking out. They have burning red eyes like the devil. They didn't all look alike. I think they made a mistake. Oh, here's one dressed in white, very brisk, long fingers, real long fingers. By God, they are kind of greenish colored too. The one in white is very brisk, calm, seems to be the only one who knows what the hell is going on. Going to take her back now. You shouldn't have done that. The tall being telepathically seems to be addressing these smaller, grotesque beings. The mother estimated the tall being was 7 feet tall and had 2-foot wide shoulders, wearing a white robe. The tall beings have no hair. The one in white, she goes on, I couldn't tell any shape to that body at all. Whatever it was wearing was loose and long to the floor. His hood was up when he came in. His hand burned my head. He was angry, very angry, but not with me. He was the only one who didn't repulse me. The others were ugly and they needed to be punished. The one in white was very light green, almost jaundiced, big eyes, cheekbones, chin, something like a nose. When the man in white comes in and restores order, I feel a respect from him for me. He seems old, very old. The man in white, oh, it burns ever so lightly where his hand is on my face. He's sorry. This didn't happen normally. The smaller humanoids should not have done this. They've been gone too long. One of the big puzzles. I don't understand that answer. There are more men, 2 more men in white. These 3 men in white, they're strange looking, thin, austere, dressed in white robes. I can't see their bodies. I got away from them at some point. I'm looking down at pools of water. Something is horrifying me. Seems to be body parts, top of a bald head in the water. The light is dim. I think I see an arm with a hand. It's human. Other something red and bloody looking. Oh God, I'm so scared at seeing this. Tongues, huge. They look real big. They're under liquid, real dark. Edge of the container seems to be green metal. I don't know how deep it is. The edge seems sharp. When they found me again, I was in the corner on the floor crying. This is so weird. All kinds of things in that tank horrified me and made me sick and frightened me to death. Something horrible in there. Same smell that I had smelled before, like a faint gassy odor. Taste in my throat is bile. These are body parts. Some are internal organs and some are not. It's like a separate cavern. That's where I went through the tunnel to get into this place, a smaller room than the big cavern that was so immense. It's what's in that thing, that pool of water, hearts, body parts, but not all cow. I look at the top of a bald head, maybe one of their heads. Oh God, I don't think I wanted to know, so horrified and sick. That bald head is one of theirs, I think. I was concerned about these alterations, the words necessary alterations in order to take me back, which means to erase her memory. Memory erasure is in all of this, from abductions to RAF Bentwaters. The military have had their minds. It's a blank exercise. You'll hear David and Corey now talk about it. It's become such an expected part of these experiences between military and humans with this intelligence and our own government. The ability to blank and erase minds and put in false memories, which will sustain for a point, but there's something very extraordinary about the human brain and mind, because memory does seep back. The ride back was like that. She snapped her fingers. I remember the lights coming to the windshield. They lowered the ship with her car inside. And I got in the car. My son is in it, and I don't know how they did it. Just bump on the ground. They set us down in the car. Not heavy, not hard. Lots of blue light all around. Blue light of a very specific cyan or cerulean blue is the one most commonly described by people who are picked up in cars. Again, I think it relates, color frequencies relate to the amount of mass that's being moved up and down. Lots of blue light all around. Where is Roswell, New Mexico? I'm not supposed to remember, but I know we were west of Roswell. I don't think I'm being allowed to look around me. I don't know how they're doing it. They tell me they're sorry. They use that word too. They apologize. Quote, those things happen. It's unfortunate. The young one is all right, close quote. They asked me to understand that it was necessary, that they must continue the mutilations. It's necessary what we do. That's the last thing I remember them telling me about the cattle. They tell me that it is regrettable, that they must do this, and I think they are talking about my memory has to be erased. The men in white seem so old. I don't know how they wiped my memory. They asked me to lie on the table. I don't want to, but I do. He asked me to roll over on my stomach, and I do. It's uncomfortable. There was a sharp pain in my neck and shoulder. I think I was drugged. The next thing I can remember clearly is that my body is very heavy, close quote. Dr. Sprinkle brings the mother back to the normal state for conversation. The mother talks about the cow, maybe it's a Hereford. The non-human said that animal mutilations were necessary. The description of instruments used to make excisions of tissues from mutilated animals was discussed. She remembers being taken underground in a large cavern where a river of water runs, and she thinks it is west of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Isn't it interesting that SpaceX and New Mexico, right there at Las Cruces, is where we're going to have a launch point to go into our solar system if everything works. Dr. Sprinkle asked, what is the purpose of the mutilations? And the mother, only that it's necessary, yet it is regrettable. Why do they kill and mutilate? The screaming. They don't have time to communicate the reason. They say they don't read with their eyes. They scan like computers, which suggests that everyone that was involved in the Cimarron case were androids. She remembers seeing the terrain around the underground installation to be hilly and saw 3 other UFOs take off from there, and 8 or 10 came flying in smooth swooping patterns. The underground lighting was odd, not fluorescent or amber, but easy on her eyes. Think of the illustrations that Corey and David have been now doing with the professional illustrator. For the first time, I am seeing what I've heard now for 38 years from people, including one scientist who was approached by Edward Teller when Reagan was president. He told me this face-to-face, eye-to-eye in a conference. He said that Edward Teller came to him, said, I want to give you a proposal. You will have all the money you want. This is what you do. This is what you want to do. And the man, the physicist telling me, he said it sounded like a dream come true until Edward Teller said, we need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you would have to sign an agreement to go underground on this planet for 3 years. And the physicist said, I looked at Teller and I said, you want me to leave my family for 3 years? And Teller said, but you will have you will never be denied money. You will be able to do everything you want. And I know how much you love tennis. And where we will put you, there will be a blue sky with puffy clouds, and you will never be able to differentiate a sunny day on the top of Earth from the tennis courts we have where we would put you. Tremendous installations. Did we build them, any of them? Or are we collaborating underground with an alien presence that has, as David and Corey now say, if it's true that the limestone is like bubble wrap around this planet below the rind on which we live, and there are huge caverns that would somehow be in and around where the solid magma is interspersed and then goes down to the core, maybe these are millions of years old. Maybe 1.8 billion is what they're saying that the builder race was last here, and that we have always had an alien presence living underground, but they would look at us as the alien presence on the surface, manipulated by beings such as Anunnaki, who created slaves on the surface, while the others are underground and have been there for a very long time, and we're on a 2-level planet. And mutilations play some major role in both the sustenance and the ability to do hybrids and clones for the alien presence. Dr. Sprinkle asks about the mutilations, and she is talking about the screaming, and it bothered her. And she's talking about this underground lighting. She knew she was in a cavern. And the mother said, I don't know if they let me out of the ship or not, but they let me stand there at an indoor river. I leaned on a rail looking down. They were with me. The mother felt cold, like it was in the 40 degrees Fahrenheit temperature range, which would be like an underground cavern. And she told Dr. Sprinkle, I saw his handwritten notes with this underlined. You know something? They don't like us humans. Those beings are something monstrous to me now. I feel like I have been in Auschwitz. And she weeps and sobs. How many of you have heard Charles Hall do presentations about the tall whites? Do you remember him saying that the tall white, they had to be very careful? They were given tremendous warnings. You never walked near their children. You never crossed on 45-degree angles in any way in their proximity. And if you did, you would die instantly. That they can do this. They have an ability to stop the heart and the brain and have done it many times, and that humans are terrified of them. There are other abduction cases involving the mutilation of animals by entities that don't look like either the snake-eyed beings in the Judy Doherty case or the large black eyes and tall pails in the Cimarron case. Others have linked to some animal mutilations, such as blonde-haired humanoids. But whose blonde-haired humanoids? The Reagan briefing from 1981 has the head, Casey, head of the CIA, telling President Ronald Reagan, for those of you who have seen my taxonomy presentations, the briefing was confirmed for me by a man who worked in the Reagan administration as being absolutely accurate. And when they go through the 5 different types of non-humans that our government is working with or around or afraid of for a very long time, they have the Ebans at the top that made by cloning and hybridization the next 2 on the list. The 4th appears, I believe, to be one of the tall humanoid groups. The 5th is called a Trilloid, and it is defined by the director of the CIA for President Ronald Reagan as an insectoid group, extremely advanced, more advanced than any of the others on the list, that comes from a solar system that has elements we do not have in this solar system. And they are categorized as hostile alien visitors. And the statement to the president is, Mr. President, they camouflage themselves in their work on this planet as blonde humans. Which blondes? Short, tall, gold-eyed, blue-eyed. What are the categories? And it reminds me of one man that I talked to back when I was working on the HBO project. I said, can you help me with a taxonomy to separate out who do we know? Who is this secret war that I keep hearing about? What is the secret war? Who's fighting it and what is it over? And I'll never forget, the answer was, Linda, that's one of the best kept secrets because the government does not want people to have any details for fear that Christian fundamentalists would take rifles and start looking for ETs hiding in human bodies. That's a true statement. And that means that our government for a very long time has been concerned about something they know as a fact. The Homo sapien sapien body is being used by warring factions. Sometimes taller beings are seen in long robes that can be white or dark colored, even some with hoods over their heads, and high collars like this one. This is a 1965 abduction case. An 18-year-old human female in Indianapolis, Indiana, had been abducted since she was 4 years old. The abductee saw the taller robed being as in charge of the 3 small, large-headed ones. And back then, the abductee remembered feeling, even to her little mind, or her young mind, the 3 little ones were not like the big one. And she said, I got the impression as I grew up that those were like biological robots, which we now know today. We're dealing with beings that make anything that they want in any body container. They can put themselves in the body containers. They can make them just like a real android, being part organic with robotic AI parts, or they can be cloned and biological, and depending upon a stratification of work assignments. Government documents have described beings referred to as extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBAs, as well as other different types, giving slang names. You will hear, when you are with some of these people who have retired, which are the ones mostly that I've been able to talk to, they've sought me out, actually. after retirement because they're looking for anybody that they think that they can talk to, give some information to, who won't go running out the door. And they refer to talls. Some call them tall pales. Charles Hall calls them tall whites. The Nordics. The Nordics are a range from 5 feet to 8 feet. Blonde hair that is straight, blonde hair that is page boy, bangs, no bangs, blue eyes, lapis lazuli eyes, gold eyes, Travis Walton case. Everybody who has ever seen a variation on the blondes, though, no matter how they say they're sort of like human eyes. I don't know anybody who has ever said anything that they looked normal. Humans know what they're used to looking at. And no matter whether you have education in this or not, humans have street smart. And humans can tell when they're in the presence of something that doesn't feel right or look right pretty quickly. So it is interesting to me that this camouflage is a huge part of the interaction of an alien presence on this planet for a very long time. But I think in the past, humans have gotten down on their knees to the extraterrestrials and called them gods, and they've never been gods. This came in the document download that Bob Wood, for those of you who may not know, Robert Wood worked for McDonnell Douglas, retired in around 1992. While he was at McDonnell Douglas, unbeknownst to the American public, his boss asked him to do a research project on the propulsion of alien unidentified aerial phenomena that could make 90-degree turns, travel at 8,000 miles an hour, and all of that. Gave him specs. And Dr. Robert Wood, an aeronautical engineer for 35 years, he tried. And they said that what they had on film and video to compare to try to come up with something that could mimic what they knew that they had videotaped was impossible. So they scrubbed that particular project. But when he retired, he decided that he would continue to study UFOs, join the Mutual UFO Network. And in the mid-1990s, it is that Dr. Robert Wood who by then he had studied, these pages came in 35 millimeter negative to Don Berliner back east in one of the UFO groups. And Stanton Friedman contacted Dr. Wood and said, "You are in California and I'm in New Brunswick, Canada." And they had contacted Stanton first. And Stanton said, this work, this 35 millimeter, we'd like to get it to you, Bob, for the study. So he took the 35 millimeter raw, had it blown up, eventually produced and printed the pages. And you're looking at exactly what was in the 35 millimeter that was dropped off anonymously at a pharmacy in Wisconsin in the early 90s. And this is where we all were first introduced to the concept extraterrestrial entities and technology recovery and disposal, and that this is a Majestic 12 Special Operations Manual. And as we go through, extraterrestrial biological entities in Chapter 5, Section 1, living organisms. This is going into, and I think since you haven't read it, we should at least some of these pages. This section deals with encounters with living extraterrestrial biological entities, known as Ebans. Such encounters fall under the jurisdiction of MJ12 OPNAC. Here's something very interesting. Dr. Wood, Stanton Friedman, Dolan, I, and a couple of others. Back in when I was working on the sightings, I was the senior producer for sightings that became the sighting series. We tried. We went to military people. We had like searches. What in the world is this acronym OPNAC? Nobody can find it. Nobody can find the definition, and yet we're pretty sure that N stands for Navy. But here is a acronym. If any of you can find out original document and what that acronym is supposed to stand, please get in touch with me. BBS-01, and will be dealt with by this special unit only. That means the one that's being trained by the Psalm 101 group. This section details the responsibilities of persons, units, making contact. Any encounter with entities known to be of extraterrestrial origin is to be considered to be a matter of national security and therefore classified top secret. Under no circumstance is the general public or the public press to learn of the existence of these entities. The official government policy is that such creatures do not exist and that no agency of the federal government is now engaged in any study of extraterrestrials or their artifacts. Any deviation from this stated policy is absolutely forbidden. And for those who may not know, this is a fact. Hundreds of people have been murdered since the 1940s in military and intelligence to keep this secret. That's a fact. By 1983, I remember having a discussion with somebody who had been very helpful to me, who said, you have been in our crosshairs. But I want you to know, just keep doing what you're doing. A policy has changed. They're now going to try not to kill people anymore. This is absolutely, exactly the way the War Department, this was not the Pentagon Secretary of Defense, this was the War Department. And the Majestic 12 group was formed by Harry S. Truman in that summer of 47. They'd already been dealing with clones and other bodies out of Cape Girardeau in 1941, 6 years before. But in 1947, when they have these three plan forms, they weren't round, they weren't spherical, they weren't discs. These were triangular shaped, swoopy. That's why they called them plan forms. That was a word that our government used a lot in the 30s to 40s. Delta shapes that had curves, plan forms. These were called unidentified plan forms with bodies that were extraterrestrial biological entities. April 1954, that is the printing date. If something is printed in April 1954, it has to have existed before. So the whole sense of this is Truman brought together under great urgency Twining, Vannevar Bush, the Forrestal, the group that became MJ-12, because they were running scared. He wanted men that in business he could trust, military he could trust, science he could trust. And their charter was to try to figure out what was going on before they made any announcement to the world. And they concluded very rapidly between the first week of July of 1947 and September 18th, 1947. That's July, August. It's 2.5 months after the crash. He signed the National Security Act of 1947. That was the same time for the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency. For people who have been inside of the government and the evolution of this very difficult bucking horse, they know that with that creation of the CIA was done because of the alien presence. Its charter has always been to cover. And once you begin to understand the true scope of this government running scared and starting all of these boxes to keep everything hidden. And then when you read, try this, go to any law library that is a good one and say, I'd like to see the National Security Act of 1947, which I did in Denver. And the law librarian said, how many volumes? I said, well, how many volumes are there? She said, I'll bring out the trolley. And it was 2 levels, and they were completely full of books. And today might take 3 trolleys. But so I sat in this law library. Well, I did this when I was still working at Channel 7 in Denver. And I began just reading page 1. And you come to sections, they're big books. I don't pretend to tell you I have read the entire act. But I did read in the first volume that there is clear language for those of us who are not lawyers. That CIA, like the NSA to come in 1952 and the DIA in 1956, the words are, there will not be congressional oversight for X number of budgetary reasons. All has to do with what I'm showing you here now. This is not made up. This is real. Description of extraterrestrial biological entities. Remember, this is now back. It can't be any later than 1954. That's when this was stamped. Examination of remains recovered from wreckage of UFOBs. And that's what the government did. They always, in their documents for about 10 years or so, put a B after UFO to separate it from the public. Kenneth Arnold called it a flying saucer. UFOs went into the newspapers. So you will find governments do that. They will pick up an acronym that the public might use, but they will change it in some way. And that's the documents. Indicates that extraterrestrial biological entities may be classified into 2 distinct categories. EBA type 1. These entities are humanoid and might be mistaken for human beings of the Oriental race if seen from a distance. They are bipedal, 5 foot to 5 foot 4 inches in height. I'm 5'2". So they'd be 2 inches taller than me at their highest, and weigh 80 to 100 pounds. Proportionally, they are similar to humans, although the cranium is somewhat larger and more rounded. The skin is a pale, chalky yellow in color. This is very interesting. I only know of 1 or 2 abduction cases out of 1,500 people I've interviewed where I remember distinctly those words. Their skin reminded me of chalk on a chalkboard. I've heard that, but only from about 2. So what I do not know, it's been hinted that there are metabolisms that depending upon when these entities eat or how they eat or what, that the skin itself can change color. So we might be dealing with same type, but a metabolism change. Now, read this. The eyes are small, wide-set, almond-shaped, with brownish black irises with very large pupils. I wonder if I showed one. I didn't in here. I should show one. That is the description in a lot of abduction cases where it's very clear that we're not dealing with the Whitley Strieber type with the pointed chin and the big eyes like that. I think those are all the robotic, android, artificial. I think this is closer to the description of a real Eban. And I'm just going to, I want you to at least be exposed and seek this out. You can go to my website, earthfiles.com. I have the entire Psalm 101 document. Every page is there clearly. These entities are humanoid, but differ in many respects, bipedal, but 3 feet, 5 inches to 4 foot 2. Now we're down where most people in bedrooms, this is the height. This is what comes up to their bed. Not always, but for the most part. And the understanding that all of us seem to have now is that when you're dealing with these beings at about this height, they are androids, a biological programmed robot. And that would explain perhaps the difference. Now here's another. The arms are long in proportion to the legs, and the hands have 3 long tapering fingers and a thumb, which is nearly as long as the fingers. The second finger is thicker than the others, but not as long as the index finger. The feet are small and narrow, and 4 toes are joined together with a membrane. That would leave hoof marks. And in mutilations, many places, even photographs, there would be like this. It comes like this. It's not like toes. It's like a strange, and some of them look like circles. And one law enforcement officer said to me, "Do you think these are like the hoofed devils of the centuries?" Okay, here's another important part. It is not definitely known where either type or creature originated, but it seems certain they did not evolve on Earth. It is further evident, although not certain, that they may have originated on 2 different planets. This is the whole Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 story that has come through hybrids, been written about, the Betty Barney Hill story, 1961. Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, 37 point, I think it's 7.5, I can't remember exactly the decimal now, but it's about 37 light years from us. That binary star system has been referenced probably more than any other system. So I would say that's where some of what's here has come from. Now here is the MJ12 Project's first annual report of 1952. And that Psalm 101 document, you just now have seen 2 or 3 pages. It's extensive. It shows illustrations of how to box the bodies, where they go. It is quite a revelation. But by that same year, in 1952, that we have the Majestic 12 Project first annual report, and it's going to all of these different people in the government. And the chairman is Dr. Vannevar Bush, who was one of the most key scientists in the Truman administration, and to investigate the capture of unidentified plan-form, delta-shaped, curvy space vehicles by U.S. armed forces and agencies. I just want you to have a feeling. These are just the tiniest selections. A consensus reached by members of the panel. And you're looking at a copy of the original document that Dr. Wood got from a man whose father worked in the press, the printing press at White Sands Missile Range in the 1940s, and secreted these pages that as a press guy he was reading. He just knew that it was important. He buried them, and it was not until he was on his deathbed that he told his son where to go, and it is Timothy Cooper, the son of the White Sands Missile Range print guy, who ended up selling everything that he had to Dr. Bob Wood in the middle of the 1990s. And you're reading some from there. Lots and lots. We're talking about dozens and dozens of pages. A consensus reached by members of the panel that until positive proof that the Russians did not attempt a series of reconnaissance flights over our most secure installations, which at that time, that was the White Sands Proving Ground. That's where we had our missiles. The sightings and recovered objects are and they do lots of misspellings in these documents, interplanetary in nature. I believe from half a dozen solid, credible whistleblowers over the last 38 years who have showed me government ID, that they have said the Cold War, behind the matrix of the Cold War, that scientists and political operatives in the Soviet Union and the United States and England were working like this. On what? The common confusion, threat, danger, whatever you want to call it, of an alien presence on this earth that they knew even then was interacting with other intelligences in this solar system and beyond. It has been the downfall of great nations and cultures when a new reality is not readily accepted by the masses. The social order was severely ravaged by the last World War. They're talking about World War II, with great damage to the religious dogma of earth without end, thus making a government disclosure irresponsible and inherently dangerous. And they go on about how the scientific community is the one that would be affected the most, because all of their so-called landscape of data would be turned upside down. Government policy of control and denial. It is the recommendation of the President's special panel with concurrence from Majestic 12 that a policy of strict denial of the event surfacing from Roswell, New Mexico, and any other incident of such caliber, and there were many, be enforced. An interactive program of controlled releases to the media in such fashion to discredit any civilian investigation be instituted in accordance with the provisions of the 1947 National Security Act that I told you should go to a law library and just take a look. The panel chairman argued for funding for air defense projects that would be useful in combating the new menace instead of developing ballistic missiles, which have proved to be useless. We had nothing that could come close or interact with or do anything with the aerial craft that was flying around in our skies. We lost so many planes trying. Men, equipment, weapons vanish without a trace. In all instances, the disappearances occurred in tropical climate and in the heat of battle or near combat scenes. Missing aircraft pilots and crews are of special concern to the military when no explanations fit the usual reasons outside of combat. One such incident is the disappearance of a flight of 5 U.S. Navy TBM-3 Avenger torpedo bombers from the Naval Air Station at Fort Lauderdale on December 5th, 1945. While no explanation as to why navigation instruments on all 5 aircraft could have failed at the same time, and efforts to rescue the 14 crewmen were unsuccessful, it is believed that Flight 19 encountered a phenomenon of celestial nature. When you go to the FDR documents with Secretary of War George Marshall and the early part of the administration in 1941, you will find those two men, the President and the Secretary of War, using the terms celestial objects, celestial nature, celestial. They knew they were not dealing with anything that was terrestrial. The last known radio transmission from the instructor pilot was heard by a ham operator, quote, "Don't come after me. They look like they are from outer space. I'm at 2,300 feet. Don't come after me." After one of the most intensive air-sea rescue operations in U.S. naval history, the Naval Board of Inquiry said that we were not able to make even a good guess as to what happened. Now, another dramatic encounter took place between a large silver UFO disc and a U.S. Air Force Captain Thomas Mantell on January 7, 1948, when Captain Mantell was trying to identify this large unidentified aerial object up in the sky that the airport had on radar. He had a visual. And here is from the transcript that was made, that was recorded of what Mantell was reporting to the tower. Quote, "It appears to be a metallic object, and it is of tremendous size. It appears to be a metallic object or possibly the reflection of sun from a metallic object." When Godman, that's the airfield, personnel arrived at the crash scene, Mantell's F-51 was found in many pieces, not large sections as one would find from a free stick descent, meaning a plane that actually crashed in those days would not have broken up like this. The wreckage contained unusual damage, as if Mantell's plane was repeatedly hit by shotgun blasts. The truth is, the measurements were 1 to 3 millimeters. Very tiny holes over all the metal, and one secret, I'm going to just say leak, that's never been proved. Somebody told me they found the same 1 to 3 millimeter holes all over Mantell's body. And that's where they say some of the metal had pitted surfaces and unusual searing. All rubber material had disintegrated in a soft, powdery substance. There was no indication of gunfire damage or fuel burn. The crash site and debris exhibited an unusually high amount of radiation of undetermined nature. Now, from 1949 to the late 1950s, there have been several crashes of B-36 bombers on routine Arctic patrol that bear all of the earmarks of the Mantell incident. That means that they found the 1 to 3 millimeter holes all over the metal in the Arctic as well. And I would assume, since we're reading now from a 1952 document, that this has happened all over the world in dozens of other cases. None of the crews were found. The atomic bombs were not recovered. Back in the early 1990s, the representative for New Mexico's Doña Ana County in Las Cruces near White Sands Missile Range was Andrew Kistner. He did a lot of research into New Mexico UFO history. He told me that he learned in the 1940s to the early 1950s, there was an American government policy to shoot down unidentified aerial discs. But the discs did retaliate. Would there have ever been any alien retaliation if we had not been shooting at their craft first? There is no evidence of unprovoked alien aggression against our aircraft, but Leonard Stringfield, UFO investigator and author of Situation Red, had his own firsthand experiences when he was in the Air Force and told me that the United States lost so many pilots trying to shoot down UFOs that the policy was finally revoked. And he told me he knew firsthand the families were never, ever told anything but that it was a training accident. Andy Kistner said he learned that President Harry S. Truman ordered a policy of denial in the interest of national security about all UFO crash retrievals, a classified executive order that allegedly is still enforced to this day, including to Mr. Trump.